Hi everyone and welcome to another episode of No Stigma, and today we have a very special guest, Mr. Adebayo Akinfenwa in the house.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me.
Come on, sis. You know I'm here, man. I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah, I'm excited. So one of the first things that I do as soon as someone comes into the show is a well-being check-in. Obviously, this is a podcast around mental health and promoting well-being and wellness. So just want to check in with you right now. I just want to see how your mind's doing. How's your heart doing?
Yeah.
You as a whole, how are you doing?
You know
today?
what? I'm good. To be fair, I do live by a mantra that I count blessings and not problems. So I'm good. And it's funny because I think just before I started retiring, before I retired, I started doing that, and it was the double question. So it was, are you good? And generally 9 times out of 10 people say bless. And then you ask them again, then you'll kind of be like, oh, okay, cool. And then whatever's on the surface is what they let out, sort of thing. But on a whole, I'm good. I count blessings. I'm healthy. The family's healthy. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in a good place. So thank God.
Amen to that. Yeah. Amen. So today I'm really excited and curious about quite a few things. Obviously, you're a footballer. Retired footballer. It's so weird to even say that.
No, not for me.
Wow. You've done your deeds.
My knees are happy.
But for me, I'm so curious to know, because obviously as athletes, we see you guys as these, beasts, like these, invincible type of characters in a way. And we always see the glory and the highlights of football. And I think one thing that we don't speak much on, even though it's becoming much more common nowadays to speak about mental health in football, but I think it's still almost like a stigma, particularly around our community, to talk about the impact that it has on, the mental health impact that it has on footballers. So I kind of wanted to get your insight into and your experience of how your experience, and also when witnessing other your teammates in terms of how football and the world of football impacts the mental health. I know it's a very broad question, so you can start anywhere. But just in general, how it impacts the well-being of a footballer.
You touched on football. I don't even think mental health is just football, but because that's was my expertise in regards. But I do think society now only sees surface level. So because they only see surface level, they don't know what it takes to go in, and that's anybody. Anybody that's striving to accomplish something. There's so much hours they put in behind the screen. Do you know what I'm saying? So listen, I can only say I think we all go through trials and tribulations. I think one thing that I can talk wholeheartedly, what I can relate to as being a footballer, is that we go through our trials and tribulations in the public eye, and the higher you are in the public eye, the more they see it. And I think that's across the board, but I'm not going to talk for football in regards where if it is you're out of form, if it is that you're dealing with injury, if it is that you're feeling with an identity crisis, you deal with that on a Saturday in front of everybody because you've got to perform, and of course, don't get it twisted, football is meant to be an entertaining and fun game, but again, it's people's lives, be it the people that play and the people that watch. So sometimes they don't want to take into any consideration that you're a human being, Exactly. Sometimes they see you as a commodity, which, listen, don't get the game twisted. It's not like I'm here to bitch and say that when you play football at any level, but especially at the highest level where you're getting paid a lot of money to be able to do something that you dreamed of as a kid, but I'll also say that, because I always do think the first thing people throw back at footballers, and again, I'm only talking about footballers, it's on any walk of life, but as footballers is, look how much money they earn. And I do say that you can't take the money with you when you're dead. I tell you that
100%.
now, so there's the things which, the trials and tribulations that football comes with. And listen, anything positive, also there will be negatives that come, that's attached to it, and I wouldn't say it's the simple things, it's the things which footballers have to deal with. It's the injuries, it's the constant injuries. So, if you're stopped from being able to do something you love, it takes a toll. And at the same time, somebody's there to replace you, and it's very, sometimes it may sound like I'm being cynical, but I've always said as footballers we're hired help. It's like
that's an interesting terminology.
The reason why I say it's that, and I, look, at the end of the day, I think the hardest thing that one in life has to kind of deal with is being comfortable with who they are. I think it's the earlier you can find that or get to a place with yourself that you're comfortable with who you are as an individual, I believe you're halfway there, you know. And when I say it sounds cynical when I say that we're hired help, because at the end of the day, and I say this, and every player who's been in my situation or who's been a player knows that football's an institution. It's an institution that will always continue to go on. Players come and go, be like managers, come and go. Generally, the only things that are static really is the institution and fans. Once you pick your team, that's your team. Once you're in the institution, hopefully the team never goes under. But players and managers and staff and fitness, they come and go. So at the end of the day, and especially now, I think football's become very business orientated. And you are hired help. You are there to do a job. And if you no longer can do that job, you're going to get replaced. And it's that. It's as simple as that. And I do think once you come to that sort of understanding, and that doesn't mean that there's no love in the game, that there's no connection in the game. It doesn't. But it does mentally prepare you that if a manager comes in and from 1 week you're playing, a manager gets sacked, another manager comes in and you're not playing, that is a mental mindfuck. And you know, sorry if I'm swearing like that. That's a mental mindfuck. And that's the thing where you've got to kind of understand that, you know, you are here to do a job. But then again, we all know we've gone into different workplaces where we really enjoy our jobs, and it becomes a little bit more than a job. But when you strip it all away, that's the thing, when you retire or when you get injured or when you no longer can do the job, they will bring in somebody else that can. And that's the point where I'll come back to this, that we're hired help. So there's a whole mental mindset or a mentality that you have to navigate through the minefield of not just life, but we can bring it a bit more specific to the football game. You know, it's difficult from one, again,
it's not for the weak-hearted. Even when you're speaking, I'm like, yeah.
You know, the maddest thing is, look, again, it's like this, right? It's probably easier to win the lottery than to become a professional footballer. That's just the stats that was out there. And then when you do make the game, it's a constant battle. Like,
should we sort of just rewind, right? Because funny enough, I wasn't even thinking about even not making it. So the work before you even make it, just that within itself, like, if you just want to maybe just highlight even a bit of your journey in that, just just so I put it into, and I think that there's a perception with certain industries where they feel like once you've made it, right? Okay, and I'll say this for anybody just to simplify it from inside looking out is where if you've made it to a point, if you stand still at that point, everybody else moves forward. So it doesn't matter what you have to do, you have to continue to move forward. So once you've signed your contract and you've made, you then can't say, I've made it, it's cool, I'm chilling. Because if that's the mentality, the person behind you is just only going to double down on his grind and surpass you. So when you make it, then the work just starts. Just like, look, we all know, and the analogy, if you work hard to get your body to where you get your body, now then you've worked, the work starts now to maintain that. So it's the same thing with football. But then again, I also say what the mentality or the mental struggle comes right from the beginning, because chat to most, and again, and it's good because I've got 2 daughters, even girls now. Chat to young girls, young boys. What they want to do is play football. That you know, it's up there. So that's a dream that somebody's had from a kid. Exactly.
And then you go through the trials and tribulations, the trials of, you know, getting yes, getting no, getting setbacks,
all of that.
It's that whole process that you go. So you're in that mental fortitude from young, that you're going to try to make it. And some people just can't come back from the rejection, that devastation that some individuals feel when somebody says, nah, you know what, I don't think you're good enough. You know, listen, for those that
do you think that preps you, like you said, for the real thing when you actually make it?
No, the thing is like this. Again, right? I would always say this. I can only talk for me as an individual, right? Of course, I'm older now, so I guess I can articulate it a little bit better. But I was never going to allow anybody who came into my life on a temporary basis permanent status on my life. So I decided from the age between 5 and 8 that I wanted to be a professional footballer. I wanted to be a footballer. That was what it was. So when I was going through my journey and there was managers and coaches that were saying I wasn't good enough or I was too big to play football, they were all just a part of my life. They wasn't status in my life. They weren't permanent. So I wasn't going to give them that permanent status over my life to say, because you said I wasn't going to make it, I'm not going to make it. So again, it wasn't like I would say, but then again, I will say that I'm a product of my environment. So I was raised, mum, dad, still together now, praise God. I've got my older sister, my older brother, and my younger brother. So there was a family unit that I always had. So whenever I had a setback that they said I was too big to play football, I came home, they doubled down and said, listen, work harder. They doubled down, work harder. So I never felt isolated. I never felt alone, which I think is as you get older, you see how important it is. There's nothing that nobody does in this world alone. I don't care how tough you are, how strong you are, you need a support system.
100%.
I would say that, again, within that, you still got to identify what you bring. You know what I'm saying? And what you stand by. But nobody does it alone. So I thank God daily for the family and the people that was in and around me from the get-go. So I do say, when you say does it set you up for the future, I think like life, you go through trials and tribulations, schools, exams, you go through things which shape you. Mine was that. I literally, what I would say helped me in, I would say my journey was when I was getting rejected as a youngster, from I think from 14 to kind of 18, I was getting rejected. Listen, nah, you're not good enough. I don't think you'll make it.
Because there's a lot of young people at the moment going through that. So,
you know what? And the advice I say, and I talk to young boys all the time. I talk to young people. Sorry, don't let me just specific because it's young girls as well. Excuse me. I talk to them all the time in regards to saying that, look, nobody can do you or be you better than you. That is your strongest, your strongest ability that you have is that you are your own person. And this is what I was saying now is, don't allow anybody who does come into your life on a temporary basis. So it don't matter if you've got a game, you've got a trial, you've got an audition. It is just their opinion. Their opinion doesn't make it so. The only thing they can control is what you're going for at that point. But the biggest picture is the big picture. And if the big picture is you wanted to be a footballer, you wanted to be an actress, you wanted to be, that's the big picture. So everything in between that, that's a byproduct to the end goal. So that's the advice I'll give. I was getting rejected and I was getting told I wasn't good enough. But then what I would say is, when I was young and I had the opportunity to go out and play football, to sign my first contract as a professional, it wasn't in this country, it wasn't ideal. I had to go to Lithuania. For me, that was part of my journey. My journey was, look, you're not going to make it here right now, so you're going to have to go. But you thought you was going to go straight, you're going to have to go right, go left.
How did that feel for you in that moment, honestly?
Do you know what the thing is, for me, and listen, I was 18.
So as an 18-year-old man now, where was your mindset? I mean, where your feeling, where was you at mentally?
I was just, all I saw was they're going to give me an opportunity to play football. Like, I think
excitement more.
Yeah, it's more, I think that you have to be driven and determined at something you want to do.
Okay.
So I wanted to play football. I'd made that decision. I wasn't getting a look in. I wasn't getting a chance over here. Somebody was giving me a chance. And then what I would say is, at 18, you are fearless. At 18, you only see what's in front of you, which is good and bad. You know what I'm saying? I do think that fearlessness, if you ask me now, with all the trials and tribulations I've gone through life, I'd have said, I ain't doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? But at 18, all I had in front of me was my life in front of me, And of course, what I went through at that time, in regards to, I touched on being fearless. I didn't think about the fortitude of stuff like not liking the food, not speaking the language, only being not being only being the only black person in the league, not even just a club, in the league. Oh, so wow. I didn't think about any of that. All I saw was I'm going to play football, and that was the big picture. And then you go out there, and in my first game, I experienced racial abuse. I experienced...
Yeah, that's why I sort of want to go in there, because one of the biggest things in football that we're still experiencing even till today, big 2025, is still racial abuse. And I know that the leagues and the clubs are doing a lot more to kind of stop abuse. But start from your own personal experience, because it's in your book, because I read that in your book, actually. And I was just like... quite amazed about the fact. I think what I was quite amazed, I'm not amazed, what's the word, but a bit shocked, was that the people that were booing you were your own fans, like your own your own club. So to me it was just like, wow, how did that feel? Because you're there playing, representing them.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And don't get the game twisted. As an 18-year-old, I grew up in Islington, Dawston. Went to a metropolitan school. I don't think I'd even had an inkling of racial abuse up until 18 in London, right? So then I go over to Lithuania, and my first pre-season game kicks off. All of a sudden I hear monkey chants. In my mind I'm like, that can't be. Never had any experience, didn't think of any of that. Then all of a sudden a chant starts reverberating around the ground. Zigga, 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 shoot the fucking nigger. Zigga, 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 shoot the fucking nigger. So I'm thinking, what the fuck? It's like, yo, brother, am I hearing this right? So anyway, I try and block it out. We get to half time, and then I remember speaking to my club captain at the time. He's the only one that can speak English. So I asked him, I'm like, yo, bro, is this really, like, I was like, bro, what is zigga, zigga? Because he was like, that's just a word they use to rhyme the N-word. So I was thinking, rah. And exactly to make your point, there was about 1,000 people singing it. So half and half. Half was the away fans we were playing, and half were my own fans that were singing this. So I remember thinking to myself at that point, thinking, oh my days, fuck this, I'm getting out of this situation. And I remember speaking to my older bro at the time, and it's funny because, shit man, it was 18. It's almost like 24 years ago, but I can remember the phone call like it was yesterday. I called my older brother and I say to him, yo, I'm coming home. And he goes to me, why are you coming home? I said, they're being racist. He goes to me, I won't tell you to stay anywhere that you don't feel comfortable. But if you leave, they win. And don't get twisted, I'm not going to go on at that time that I thought, it was profound what he said. I was like, I'm coming home. But I would say, my faith is mad important to me. Call it divine intervention. But I remember the next day me thinking, yeah man, nobody's running me out of nowhere. If I've got a dream, I'm going to be able to pursue it. And then, thank God, I went through that season, scored hella goals, we won the cup. But what I took from that situation, I really took from that situation two things. I took that because the fans that were booing me at first, my own fans, all of a sudden started loving me. So then what that first thing I taught was ignorance is bliss. It really taught me that. It really taught me that ignorance is bliss is that they're scared of the things they don't know. They've never seen a black person before in their team, as in their team or in their league.
But it's very dehumanising though, because he is,
But this is what I'm saying. I always think that as cynical as it sounds, you can only control the controllables. You can only control yourself and the way you move.
100%.
So what I could do at that time was I could only go and be the best footballer I could be at the time. You know what I'm saying? And within that football, brought those on my team over to me. So before where they was zigga zigga zigga, then all of a sudden they was hailing as I was. So still getting racial abuse from the away fans, and that was what it was. And then of course, secondly, it was like, you know what? I can deal with most things thrown my way. So at the age of 19, so I was signed 18. So that 2-year period, it really shaped me as in like, you know what? Mentally, you have to be strong for certain things. And sometimes when you're going through your darkest moments, it sets you up for the person that's you're going to be in the future. So they were two elements that I'm talking about was definitive, not just only in my career, in my life, in the fact where I remember saying this, and I said this recently, what I regret that I came off. So I remember on that first game, second half started and they were still chanting, and I said, I'm coming off, and there was a big roar. And I remember, as I've gotten on, I remember that after telling this story, one of my regrets was allowing them to change who I was, to come off. You know, I allowed them to stop me playing the game I love because of them. And I remember that was a regret of mine. And then this is what I was saying. I was like, look, at the end of the day, ain't nobody can be you or do you better than you. So be you. So at the end of the day, it's as I've gotten older, it was, you know what? Don't do things to prove other people wrong. Do things to prove yourself right. So that was my one regret, walking off the pitch or allowing them, for me to come out of who I am, you know. But, and this is what I'm saying, in my life, and especially my career, it was a definitive moment or time where it was going to shape me to be who I am. And then listen, I know we touched on this racism, and we're still experiencing it now. And look,
because there was a recent footballer, I think a Brazilian, I can't remember his name, and he was being interviewed, and he got really, he's a young footballer, got really emotional. I can't remember his name.
Vinicius.
Yeah, and he was basically saying, you're asking me these questions, but the reporter was asking him questions about the game, and he was just like, do you not see what just happened when I was playing the game, and how the racial abuse I was receiving? And he got really emotional about it. And I feel like we all built different in a way in terms of our resilience in a way, but it does have such a massive impact on because if you're not 100% well mentally, it's going to impact your performance.
Listen.
So, because do you not feel that sometimes? Because I've heard many times athletes of all across the board are saying that the game is like 80% mind and the rest is physical. Like, what is?
It's more than 80%.
Okay.
It's more than 80%. To be fair, if your mind starts working against you, so I keep saying this: the strongest individual is strongest. Their strongest is their mind. I don't care how big their arms are, don't care how big their legs are, don't care how big their chest is. The strongest thing they own is their mind. So anybody, and this is anybody, forget athlete, this is anybody that's accomplished something, it was their mindset that got them through, period. So that means if your mind starts working against you, so if the strongest thing you own starts working against you, it's a problem. And that's just simple. I say this all the time. I say when people want to talk about, you're the beast and look how big your arms are, rah, rah. I said that they fail in comparison to my mind, because my arms won't get to that size if my mind don't say, let's go to the gym. If my mind don't say, all right, look, we've got to work. So the mental side, it's so powerful that I don't understand how we don't talk about it more. I don't understand how in any organisation or institution that you may have physical coach but you don't have mental coaches. I don't understand it, because it's such, and I use this, that the best managers that I've worked under has connected with me on a mental level. Like, it's just where you're like, look, you know what? They see me as a person. They don't see me as a commodity. But I am also aware that what the industry I went into is business oriented. It's result orientated. So sometimes some managers are like, look, at the end of the day, I want to connect, but I've got so many things to do. If you can't do it, I understand it. I feel sorry for you. You need to do what you got to go do. I got to go bring somebody else in. And that's what the mental side of being a footballer is that, look, you know what, I'm hired help, I'm a commodity, they don't see me as a person. So when somebody like Vinicius was breaking down and he said, you don't see me as a person, you're more worried about the score was 2-1 or I didn't score or we lost or we won, whereas 10,000 people, and I don't let me excuse numbers, but people out there, while my family could have been in there, were coming at me or being racist as a person, but you don't see that. You don't have the empathy for that. So, and this is where I'm saying that the mindset to be able to be, and it works for you and against you. I keep coming back to that. Where if you can get your mind to a point where you're like, alright, cool, listen, I know what I am. And it's those individuals that you know, they'll be like, listen, they know who they are. I knew they was going to make it. Because no matter what, they weren't going to devour from. They weren't going to, deviate from what they were. That's but when you don't, and then also sometimes you go through these private problems publicly, and that's so hard. And this is again, I've said this about social media. It's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing and a curse. Like, don't get. So you're now going through or seeing everybody's opinion about you on a situation. Mentally, we're not built for that.
We're never supposed to hear that many opinions.
We're not built for that.
Human beings are
so that's
to be
why
that
I
many
keep
opinions.
coming back to this mental thing where it's like, don't ever feel like, when you're watching somebody else or something and you're trying to emulate them, that what you're seeing as the final product is what it was always. That's what I think that you've got to understand. You've got to understand, if I see that, there had to be work that went into that. Oh, you know what? Even if they want to talk about they did it by themselves, they didn't. So don't ever be afraid. And the thing is, which, again, I won't say I learned this anytime. This wasn't I learned recently. I'd known this. I'd known long time ago. I was comfortable in my own skin. So, boy, if I have to cry, I cry. It don't make me any soft as an individual. And I'm not saying, I don't think, it's not like I've gone around.
I'm pretty sure there's many athletes, like, even if it's behind closed doors, where because you're human. Like, So I think we need to really this is the stigma we're trying to break, is even though, obviously, when you're in front of cameras and you're performing, you have to hold yourself to a certain way. But when you go to your family, that is when all of that then comes out.
100%.
You know what I mean?
But then I also feel that there's a responsibility.
I think it's important also because I really want to, because everything that you're saying is so important, particularly to young people that are pursuing this dream, in terms of a lot of the young people are so focused on going to the gym and building themselves up physically and technical and getting the best form and all of that. But it's, like you said, it's equally important for them to understand the challenges mentally that they're going through, and how are they going to be mentally ready for all the things that we're basically talking about now.
There's certain things that you just can't prepare for. You can't prepare for being catapulted in the limelight. There's certain things that even me at my big 42, that I see these young bucks come through, and I don't care. Even me, if I got it now, I couldn't be. Like, there's certain things where you're just like, oh shit, this is overwhelming. Oh, this is a lot. Do you know what I'm saying? So, but what I would say is, look, we are visual creatures as humans. So automatically, if you want to go and look at somebody's fitness, you're going to see the outer exterior. You're going to be like, oh yeah, that person's fit. You know what I'm saying? But exactly where you said, all right, cool. There's the outer, and then there's the inner. So when somebody's working on their fitness, their aesthetics, be it their calves, be it their cardiovascular levels, they also have to be able to take in and be like, all right, cool. What then do I have a coping mechanism that I can build for the mental side of it? So that rejection, okay, who do I have to talk to? Oh, is it my faith? Is it, you have to then start to implore to be a well-rounded, to be able to maneuver through life. I don't even just think football, but in general. But specifically in regards to the mental side, it's like, okay, cool. Because there's this, look, as a black guy who's maneuvered through, and in our community, there's that whole stigma around, man, we tough, we got to be tough. This is what X, Y, and Z. Nah, man, listen, I always say the strongest person is the person that can be the realest, that can be as comfortable in their own skin. So, and I do think that there's a due diligence and a responsibility to be able to, however, you hold yourself a certain way in front of the camera, you do. But then you also have that responsibility to know, but if something is on your mind, if you do feel less as a person, find an outlet to be able to conversate, or to be able to go to the boxing, or to find an outlet in your person, in your life, to be able to deal with it mentally. Because look, 100%. We could always talk about the physical attributes on all walks of life, you know what I'm saying? But we've touched on this, that you do the mental side of it, and I'll always say this to every footballer, the mental side of it outweighs the physical. I'll tell you that now. But they go hand in hand. Yeah. But I think you get further along if you're mentally right than if you are physically right. That's my opinion. Just because of how many pitfalls and trials and tribulations you go on your journey. So, listen, that for me, that's how I would be kind of paint down to say, look, on the mental side, that's how you deal with it.
And in regards to, so I'm going to go back to something that you said a couple minutes ago, was the injuries, because let's go back to the physicality as well, because your body is your instrument, basically. So anything that happens to your body, that's even literally can set up your whole career. Your body is your work. Really, your body is your work.
Man, that's your tool.
And not many people, this is what I'm saying. So if something does happen, like injuries, number one, I just wanted to find out whether, from your experience, past or present, that the league or clubs, whoever is responsible for the players, do you feel like they give you guys enough time to recover? Because like you said, it's now becoming even more of a business. So do you feel like there is a certain grace that is still giving players giving them enough time to recover so they're able to give their best performances? Or do you think it's getting even more worse now because it's now becoming much more of a business? Or is it the same? I just want to get insight into that.
I think it's hard. I think it's a hard one. I think, don't get twisted, I think that generally clubs want to take care of their players. They do. I don't think that any club goes out to be like, all right, look, we're going to try and run them into the ground. I don't think that's the case. But I do think there's context into everything. I think that, listen, you're especially at the top level, the elite level, the amount of games that these athletes now have to play, because it's, look, I've said this, I do think the games become very business orientated. But one thing I will also say is, these athletes love playing football. Like, they love the game. So at the end of the day, they're getting paid, but they're doing a job that they love. So 9 times out of 10, if they can do it, they're going to play. You know what I'm saying? And then how are you going to tell somebody who wants to play the game, who's very good at the job, that you're not going to play them, which can help your career as a manager or help the team enhance the commodity of the player? So it's a domino effect. I think that, if I'm honest, I think that the players at the moment, I think the business is outweighing the players' well-being, in my opinion. I think there's too many games, and I do think that the only ones that really that it really comes back on is the players. Elite football is crazy. I didn't even make it to the top of the top, and it was a lot when I played, let alone them playing 4 competitions. They're in 4 competitions, then it's international football, and now they're adding more competitions, and you want to be able to give your best foot forward. And look, I think more the injuries in regards to the mental side is that you're still dealing with, okay, if you're out for a long time, there's going to be somebody else that's going to come.
And this is what it is. How do you even deal with that, though? Because that is your life in a way. So because a lot of the times your identity, that becomes your identity. So how then do you balance that out on a mental way where you're like, all right, it's a lot.
But look, I always think that people don't understand. And when people do hear, so people hear this and be like, boy, if you're paying me 200 bags a week, it is where it is. And the worst thing is, I don't knock that. I understand. I don't sit here saying footballers have got a hard life. Oh, it's hard. I don't get twisted. If you can do something that you dreamed of doing and they're paying you, you're in a good place. Don't care what anybody says. You know what I'm saying? But we can also identify that, saying that, but there's a strain mentally and physically on that. They're humans, regardless of what, Definitely. It's like, so we can understand that. You can turn around and say, oh, yeah, but I would go through all that if I was getting paid that. That's fine for you as an individual. But we'll turn around and say, what they still have to deal with, it's not all rosy and sunshine. So, and then listen, at the end of the day, if you've got to deal with that mental fortitude in regards to say, all right, look, you know what, but I'm injured, I've just got to concentrate on me. I've got to concentrate on my rehabilitation. I want the team to do well, but I've got to concentrate on me. And that's just at the end of the day what it comes down. There's so much distractions or so much noise which will be going around, and you'll be hearing social media, oh, look, somebody's come in and they're better than, the team's better now, you're not there. You've got to deal with that. At the same time of you trying to get back and then having pain, and so there's this whole process that you've got. But then I always say that.
Do you feel that there's, sorry to intervene, do you think that there's, like, drug abuse as well, because obviously
There's what abuse?
Substance abuse, because
in football?
I don't know where, I'm just trying to find out, because obviously I do know, for example, in games like basketball and other, even boxing, that, people, due to injuries, they start taking like painkillers and certain substances. Do you feel like there's that? Because I'm not too sure. Is there that?
Do you know what?
Football?
I ain't gonna front you. When it comes to football, I think what happens in football is,
because they feel like they have to push, because it's almost like
it's not really that's not really the case in football. What I find is that the people that get suspended, because there's a lot of stuff that you kind of can't take. You can't take Lemsip. You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
Yeah, you can't take Lemsip. There's certain things. Yeah, man. Like, I remember.
So you got a cold, you can't take Lemsip?
I'm telling you.
No way.
I'm telling you. Listen, I'm retired now, but there's a couple of times I had to take Lemsip. I was just sneezing. I chew.
But how come? I want to know.
Because there's ingredients inside Lemsips that is banned. Like, no, and this is what I'm trying to...
No way.
That's what people get banned for. It's not steroids. It's not that sort of thing. It's the things that are banned on the list that you can't take, which generally, I know there's many stories. I think Pogba recently got done for taking, I think, something in a protein shake, or it was I want to say hay fever tablet. Look, don't get twisted.
Something along them lines.
Some people they'll jump on me and say, "No, man, he took this." Look, but I assume.
So interesting.
But these are the stuff that you can't. So it's not really, even you can't take too much inhalers. So if you've got asthma, you can't take too much, because it kind of, I think, opens up your airways and makes it unfair. So I think it's those sort of things. It's not really it's not the mindset of man being like, oh no, man, I need to take painkillers. Even though what has happened, I think, over the years is that people get addicted to taking painkillers, which is it's just them getting used to taking painkillers. Do you know what I'm saying? Because they're trying to play through the pain. But again, it's more a mental mindfuck in regards to, and this is why I say that you really got to try and block out the noise, because again, if you are injured, you're dealing with that. You're dealing with your body not manoeuvring or listening to the way you want it to listen. And then it stops you from doing something you love. And then on top of that, you've got people saying, whoever's took your place, maybe now the team's better because you're not there. And then at the time, you're like, well, I've just played 50 games. I was just doing this, and then all of a sudden, I'm that easily to drop out. So you've always got that sort of noise coming in. But it's that where I keep coming back to, where the sooner you can learn about being comfortable in your own skin. But I say also the problem that football has is you've got young kids getting thrusted into the limelight, playing 100 games, and I don't care what they say, they're still young. They're still babies.
I get it.
But what football does do, and becoming in the limelight, it forces you to grow up. It forces us to see them as real adults, and then so
because you've played with such a different range.
Man, my strike partner when I retired was 20. I was old enough to be his dad. You know them ones. So you do, and don't get this. Listen, it does. It's good because it does keep you young. There's no other industry where I would be kicking it with somebody that was half my age. You know what I'm saying? But so it's a balance. I think we bring the experience to the young boys, and then the young boys bring the young enthusiasm to the older senior players. So it's a nice balance. It's a nice culture, when you get it right. But again, just before, I wanted to touch on that racism thing in the sense where racism is a societal problem, not one industry problem. So it doesn't matter if it's football, basketball, theatre, chef. The same people in society are going to these places. So the fact where, and again, this is the $1 trillion question, is how do we get better in society? Because if we get better in society, then we're going to get better in all these other specific industries. So that's what we got to try and do. But I know the governing bodies are trying to do better. You know, we are speaking about it more. You know, definitely. And then of course the punishments if you do get found guilty,
fines and stuff, banned as well.
You know, so. Good. But I always do think, and I won't even front, don't tell me to give you the exact answer, but I do think we can always do more. The governing bodies can actually do more. But yeah, they're the processes which, again, you have to deal with. The mental side of it is dealing with private problems publicly.
And just quickly, in terms of talking about the youngsters and the seniors, obviously one thing about football is that you always change teams.
Yeah.
I just want to know, like, going to the minds again, the impact mentally of going from one team to another team, and sometimes you might be playing in a higher league, and then you're then playing in a lower league. Doesn't that do something in you? Because let's keep it real, we're humans, so it's not even an egotism thing. It's like you know what I mean?
It is.
I'm trying to sugarcoat it, but you know, and you do. You're like, I used to play with these players and this, and now you're playing with players almost like on a lower level than you, because you
or what you think,
exactly, because you were playing with the big boys at one point. So because it's one of those type of game industries, what does that do to you? Like, look, honestly,
do you know what? It's an ego.
And how do you deal with it as well?
All right, cool. Every person in the game, so we're talking about football, needs to have an ego. You need to have an ego. It's this, but there's egos that you can control and there's egos that you can't control. The ones that.
But is it not a bit detrimental to have too much though?
No, I'm saying if you can't control one's ego, it's a problem. If you sometimes you can go out there and say I'm the best in the world. Like, I'll tell you this now. You know what I'm saying, and that surpasses confidence, borderline arrogance, and your ego's like, listen, I'm telling you, I'm the best in the world. Don't bring me off. I'm the best player here, X, Y, and Z. And I'll turn around and say, if you use your ego and constantly go out there and deliver, you ain't got to be liked. Some people go there and be, listen, I'm not here to be. I've got my bridges outside football. Come in here, I'm going to do me. And so that's an ego, which it never goes that way all the time. But that's fine. Everybody needs an ego. Everybody needs that edge in a game where you're up against somebody else, right? But where it becomes a problem is if your ego's bigger than your output. That's just what it is. Look, this is not an individual sport. You didn't pick up golf, you didn't pick up tennis. You've picked up a team sport, so you have to be able to work within a team dynamic. So, but then individually, if you do start off at the big boys and then all of a sudden they say you don't want you, and then you have to go down and try and apply your trade in a lower league, and then to you deem these players or the standard not up to your level. Mentally, that's a mindfuck for you, because you can't comprehend. You're like, Bob, how have I gone from that to this? You know, and that's just life again. But specifically in football, and this is why I'd be like, the earlier or the quickest you can find out what you are and comfortable with who you are, then whatever gets thrown at you, you can deal with. So nobody's not saying that you can't be like, rah, how did I end up here? I remember having a moment now when I was like, yo, shit, I'm not even getting into this team, and this team's losing. Like, but what does that say about me? And then you take a step back, you take a breather, and then you turn to what it is, be it family, be it the Bible, be it the Quran, be it your faith.
Therapy as well.
Therapy, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, whatever you then need to turn to, because sometimes if you're just listening to what's going on in your own head, it gets muddled up sometimes because you're in it. So sometimes when you're in it, that's like sometimes you just be able to look at it from outside looking in and you see something totally different. Sometimes when you talk it out, like, okay, well, I was just hearing it in my head and it was adding up to this, but when I speak it out, I'm like, actually, no, it adds up to this.
It's a different perspective.
So, but then so I say sometimes just speaking it out. Just speaking it out helps. You know, if you keep things in your head, it's the same. If you turn around and say, oh yeah, you know what, I'm going to go do this, but you keep it in your head and then you say it out loud, either one, you're like, okay, cool, it sounds so much different when I say it out loud than when I was having it in my head. So sometimes just speaking it out. So that's the process when I go with, when you're comfortable with who you are, it's then, all right, cool, I've got to reset, because where I thought I was, they don't see me the same way. So then I'm going to have to double down so it's undeniable. So, and they're the things which, that's a controllable ego, because you can control your ego. It's those ones that go down and be like, nah, man, bruv, I'm entitled to this. I was here, so I need to stay here. And they're the ones that you can't control. But again, it's still being able to learn methods to be able to deal with that, because that person whose ego's uncontrollable, they're not a lost cause. They just haven't been able to talk to be able to deal with
that.
that process that comes into being like, all right, look, you know what, cool, football's an opinionated game. Exactly. It doesn't make it so, but the people that right now that are making the decisions, it doesn't align with your thought process. So cool. Now what you got to do is you got to double down. So either you got to pivot and kind of conform to how they want to see it, or you double down on who you are and make it undeniable. But these are then lessons and little tricks that get taught to you as a person, which only for me comes over a period of time as you roll with experience and start realizing and start putting things in perspective to say like, but if the person don't check for me, they don't check for me. Yep. Listen, I don't want to be hated, but I don't need to be loved. Do you get what I'm saying? But this comes with experience. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. If not, then it then comes with being taught. So then these youngsters coming through need to be able to have somebody to mentally to be able to put them in a balance of being able to maneuver forward. But that's how you, it's, listen, again, there's no, I always turn around here and say, even when I'm talking, I was still learning stuff at 40. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just before, every day is a learning day. You know what I'm saying? In regards, so it's just how you as an individual is open to be able to take in information. And that's what it is. But it's the mental side. I always come back. The day, God forbid, I put it out. If my mind ever worked against me, it would be a wrap. I don't care what happens.
I think that's everyone. And that's across.
If your mind starts working against you, it becomes a problem. So then why not? If you're going to gym every day, why not find tools to be able to help your mental side? So, like, I don't get it twisted. The brothers will say I'm an argumentative brother. I go from 0 to 100. You know what I'm saying? But then within that, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I value my brothers. I value my people around you. So after that, in the moment where you're rah, then afterwards you'd be like, all right, cool. Mum, I went down this route because of this, or I went down that right. And listen, I know people be sometimes thinking, nah, man, we can't talk our feelings. But forget the feelings, just talk. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're adding this, oh, no, man, it's just, well, this man are being soft or being emotional. Take all that out and just have a conversation. And where it leads is where it leads. Do you know what I'm saying? So I do think talking, I do think expression, I think it's massive, you know. But of course, you have to find the tools, be able to maneuver through it.
And now we're coming towards the end of our episode. So obviously you're now retired.
Yeah.
So how is that transition from, you've been playing since you was a kid, literally. Yeah. That's been your whole life, almost like a part of your identity, really.
Yeah.
So, where are you now, like, with this transition?
You know what? I would always say that I was a lucky one. Again, I'm lucky because of who I've got around me. I will state that. And within a team, you still have to come and do you. I always say that, you know, and I'll stand 10 toes on that. But I was very lucky in regards to, one, none of my brethren's played football, so I was very easy when the game was done. I was able to switch off from the game. Do you know what I'm saying? That was one. And then two, I had known early, and it may sound cynical, but I knew we was hired help in this game. I knew that, look, you know what, but as soon as you finish, they have to maneuver on. They have to continue as in business. And I'm not saying they won't check in, even though they haven't checked in, but saying that. But I'm not saying they don't check in or anything. But what I do understand is, look, man, they are an institution. They are business. You know what I'm saying? Once I can't no longer score goals for them, or they're going to bring in somebody else that can. So I think I was already transitioning while I was coming towards the end. So I was always preparing for retirement. And I always say this to people, not as in that I'm trying to, you know, dismiss that, you know, what I did. But when people say, oh, yeah, we got acting friend with a footballer, I always say I'm retired. You know, same when people want to come and take pictures, oh, it's the footballer. No, retired. Just because I'm not, look, what I accomplished in my career, I'm hopefully grateful and I'm proud of my career, but I'm transitioned.
Do you miss it a little bit as well?
No, I don't miss the playing. One thing I'll always say that I would miss the culture. I'd miss the fact that a 40-year-old can kick it with a 20-year-old. As in football.
Football, yeah.
Pause. Pause. That clip will get taken and you know what I mean? I'm just talking about in the culture. Just let me let you know, shit.
I hear that.
But in the sense of the culture, in regards to, you really don't see age at that in the changing room. But of course you do, because there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
So that's what I miss. I miss the culture. I miss that whole element when you accomplish something with a team. But
yeah.
what I'm lucky enough is I've got a team now, you know,
exactly.
that I work with a team and we accomplish stuff, sort of thing. So I still have the elements of that. But actual playing the game, I was blessed, and I thank God, and I give thanks daily that I was managed to play the game for 21 years. The game that I loved, I played for 21 years. So I'm happy with that in regards to that. So yeah, now I'm trying to maneuver the transition and the whole new part of my new life is dealing with mental fortitudes. Now all of a sudden that, you know what I'm saying, that every Saturday there would have been that, you know, a law of that feeling, scoring goals, you know what I'm saying, that euphoria don't get felt, but you then have to find something which does then stimulate you like that. And listen, it's a constant growth.
It's a journey, you know,
which I'm enjoying. I think that's what life's all about. I think life's for living and not just existing.
100%. And is there anything that you feel like the organisation, like the leagues and the football league, in terms of the players that are coming in, should do more in terms of the mental health of the football world?
I also think that the clubs, because I think regardless of what I think sometimes don't get the fans will see what the fans want to see. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you won't get fans that will, you know, that will have empathy for the players and stuff if something happens, you know. But I do think the clubs really need to be able to set up workshops, set up well-being checks constantly, and I think they do. But in regards that as human beings, they come first. Football comes second. But that's easier said when there's billions of dollars on it. So I get it. You know what I'm saying? The worst thing is I do understand that it's a business they try and run, but I look at this point. Your business won't go nowhere if the players are not taken care of. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's where it is. Look, you need to take care of your players. You need to listen to them, and they're humans before they're footballers.
Perfect way to end it. And the way that I like to close the show is I ask my guests to sort of just maybe anything that they've been holding. It might not be nothing, but anything that you might be holding this month or this past month or this past week that you sort of just want to like leave it in this space, and then something that you want to gift yourself with. That makes any sense. So it's anything just anything that you want to leave. Maybe it could be tired. This could be anything that you. Or
you know what? To be fair, I've been renovating my house for the last year, and I just want to leave that stress.
So just put the stress there.
So you can take that
space there.
And you can just start to release that stress. I'll tell you that now. What I'm going to gift myself, I'm going to do 7 new holiday destinations this year. That's what I'm going to gift myself. I'm going to gift myself going to 7 new places, taking new cultures. So that's what I'm going to do.
I love that.
7 places.
Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Again, thank you so much, my brother.
Love the time, sis. Come on.
Love, guys. Bye. I don't know.